Welcome to the latest Three Takes on AI podcast. We discuss water, fresh, clean water to drink, to grow food, and the insatiable need to cool AI data centers. Join us on our take on water and AI and share your takes with us at threetakesonai.com. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest Three Takes on AI. We're actually going to publish this podcast a week early. Mike is going on vacation, and so we're not going to let him off the hook of promoting and publishing. So we're going to go ahead and get started. But I'm going to kick this one off because I wrote a Substack article about the importance of water and the impact of AI data centers. And the post on LinkedIn, as of this morning, had over 6,200 impressions. Some people made comments about, we'll figure this out, we'll do recycled cooling, we'll do evaporation. There are a lot of different comments about it, but I'm more surprised about the numbers. And one of the comments, and the reason this has been on my mind for quite a while, because um, water is a scarce resource on this planet, and that is we can't create more of it. And fresh water that we can drink is even more so. And I'm sure there are a number of people on this planet. They say one of the studies I saw, anywhere from 2 to 3 billion people on the planet, um, fresh water access is either scarce or a hard resource to come by. And we can talk about power, and we will, I imagine, on this podcast. But the environmental impact of AI data centers and their water requirements, even if they're recirculating water, is a serious issue. And I think I'm glad that so many people paid attention to my post. We'll have on this page, I invite everyone to go read my Substack article so they don't just assume I'm a 4 paragraph kind of guy. But I think it's important. I think we need to understand more about the impact of what we're doing beyond just the technology. I think that's something that we have highlighted on this podcast. We talk about humans a lot, and I think this is more of a human issue. And then before I hand it over, we can live without electricity if we had to. We can live without AI or even technology, but if we had no water, we wouldn't be living. So that's something that I think we need to put into context. Mike, do you want to make the next comment?
Sure, because I posted this on LinkedIn as well. I posted your article and got almost 1,000 impressions. And this is something that is really, really near and dear to my heart, which most people who know me don't realize, because I grew up on the ocean. I live near the ocean now, and I live in a place that is water challenged. All of our water comes from aquifers, though I'm completely surrounded by ocean water in 100 kettle ponds, or what they call kettle ponds here on Cape Cod, and we don't have enough fresh water. And when I started college in the early 1980s as an environmental policy major. And back then, over 40 years ago, we were talking about the crisis that we're facing today. And that was without envisioning anything about AI and the problems that we face today environmentally and certainly with around water weren't envisioned to start occurring for another 10 or 15 years. That's how far ahead of the problem we are right now in a bad way. And we are ignoring the crisis that we are creating with this. And I think there's a lack of information and education to the masses. It's starting to bubble up a little bit, right? There was, they were unable to defeat a large data center, or two large data centers, one in Texas, one in Utah, even though the electric consumption and water consumption have potential to really destroy communities, but they got railroaded through, and I'm being very unkind about that on purpose, but they did. The citizens did not want these data centers, and they're getting them anyway. And we have to make a decision about the economic impact. Is it really going to be worth it to society? Especially, Brian, as you pointed out, if we get AI, but we don't have water. And then the last thing I'll say just is an interesting coincidence. I was at a 1-year-old birthday party this weekend. I was talking to my girlfriend's daughter, and she and her son-in-law had been to Japan earlier this year. And we were going through pictures, and one of the things that they showed me was a sink and a bathroom, and the sink was built onto the top of a toilet, so that when you wash your hands, that water
Mm,
goes to the toilet and becomes flushable water instead of instead of losing potable water. It just makes sense, and we are not doing any of that here in the United States, or I would say even in North America, and that is massively detrimental. So that's where I'll
Yeah.
stop.
I think the initial take I saw on it was that the areas that are being targeted to potentially host these AI data centers or processing centers are in areas that don't necessarily have a strong water supply to begin with, or if they do, that water supply is basically being sequestered by technology-based companies. I'll go off on a tangent here because I don't think very many people are aware of the implications that the beverage industry has had on water.
mm,
Coca-Cola, Pepsi, all the major all beverage providers need fresh water. And they themselves, over the past 10 to 15 years, have been going into municipalities where there is fresh water and gaining access rights to that water. So they're withdrawing fresh, usable, potable water for human consumption and for agriculture and for animals, and taking it and putting it in the beverages. Now, theoretically, that is recycled to a certain degree, tongue in cheek. But if we now shift to AI, the same thing again is happening is that AI, through extensive lobbying, is working with councils and government to sequester water and natural resources from us. And it's not just in the US. I mean, Canada has the benefit that we actually have a lot of freshwater sources, which unfortunately is going to be leveraged to a certain degree as lower cost water for AI data centers to be able to take advantage of. One of the things I see here is that your AI prompt really is a water bill. And I don't know, combined with the hesitancy of the general population around AI now, there's more of a fear than I think that there is an expectation. You know, do you are you able to license, sort of throttle or maintain, the utilization of AI prompts? So before somebody puts in a prompt, give me an image of my cat as a human, that those sort of aspects of just prompt consumption, of therefore water consumption, are critical. I think water is critical. I fundamentally agree. And I totally agree with, I think, Brian and with Mike on this, that we have to be more intelligent on how we use these natural resources without just blatant not thinking of what the implications are for the people that live in that region, but also just for the consumption of that resource. I mean, I've got many other thoughts too. I mean, just from electricity, that's another discussion we get into. Rare earth metal um, consumption too, right? I mean, that those are being consumed for the creation of the hardware, and you're going to see your consumer products go up in price. Anyway, I'm hogging the podcast here, but I fundamentally agree. I think it's something that we need to take better care of.
So one thing was interesting I was reading this morning, and that is a lot of these data center plans talk about surface water usage instead of going directly to the aquifer, the source of the water. A few years back, I attended a presentation in Austin about water. And one of the challenges Austin has in growth is they paved over so much without a plan as to what to do with surface water. And people who don't realize that aquifer is getting replenished by surface water. So using another approach to get to the water that doesn't directly sound like you're using that local resource is, obviously is a challenge. And one of the things I did in the article on it is that IBM in the latest mainframe is using a recirculated coolant that doesn't need to be replenished. So there are good options out there, but the problem, and then my last comment for the moment, then one person mentioned we'll figure this out over time and look what's happened over the last 20 years. But the headlight here is Bitcoin, because those data centers are having the same issues. And they've been around since 2009. And I published a response to one of the comments this morning that there was a science study last year about the water impact of Bitcoin. So we're not taking the right approach. And I imagine if we dig in a little deeper, all the mega cloud providers are probably the original headlight to this, where they're consuming tons of water for cooling. So we just need to think about it. And you remember maybe 20 or 30 years ago, we were talking about greenhouse gases, and we've done a pretty good job of repairing the ozone layer. Once the population and the governments are aware and take action, things do improve. And I think this is one of those things that is mighty important.
Yeah, listen, again, this is an educational issue. And the irony is I'm sitting here right now and I'm having part of my house power washed, right? We're using water. Um, I had to make a decision to significantly cut back on how much of the house they were doing, like only hit those areas where if I don't deal with it, I'm going to end up paying thousands and thousands of dollars in repair to the house. But I know people who have their entire house and property power washed, every inch of it every year, which again, it's water. And I'm going to veer off topic a little bit because I don't think people really understand. I'm learning more about the implication of the lack of water. I had a conversation recently about how where I live on Cape Cod, we desperately need affordable housing for plumbers, for firefighters, for people who work in restaurants, police officers, etc. And the person I was talking to said, well, the issue isn't so much politics as it is water. And it's the lack of water that limits what we can build. So, and then the cost explodes. So if we, or until we start thinking about water, same as a precious metal, we are not going to change this problem. We don't start thinking about it until we start running out of it. Like, what happened out in Las Vegas and in parts of California. When you can't get water out of your tap, when you can't get drinking water, Flint, Michigan, then it really becomes important. And you can't just replenish it. AI won't fix this. So as much as same caveat every recording, as much as we are AI enthusiasts, I also think sometimes we are the canary in the coal mine. And we're trying to have folks understand that there is massive value, but massive impact as well. And we have to be smart about the intelligence.
And I agree totally. I think the issue is that we're racing. I mean, we could certainly discuss building large metropolis areas in a desert is probably not the best idea. But anyway, Campbell, did you have something to say?
Yeah, I think the U.S. specifically needs, or potentially Canada and also Europe, they need to look to China. China is winning the renewable energy sort of, not battle, but race, let's call it. Wind, solar, tidal, anything that we can get renewables out of tends to then offset, let's say, the electricity. Now, depending on where you are in the country, hydroelectricity is obviously dependent upon water. And so therefore, it fundamentally, everything at the end of the day, it comes back down to water. But I think that there needs to be more, from my perspective, from a governance and assurance perspective, there needs to be more policies that are put into place to these companies and or people that are going to use those technologies to address the requirements and put pressure back on the vendors and the builders of these environments to build them to be as um, environmentally friendly as possible, I guess would be my concern or my thought. I mean, I think about Chinatown, the film that came out back in, I think it was either the 80s or 90s with that it's a wonderful film, but its underlying premise was that people were hoarding water in Southern California to build infrastructure. And so they were withholding a natural resource of water to individuals. So again, it's almost to the point that, again, we are in a point that things are being held back and maintained for the use of corporate use, but not for the personal and community-based use. And I think it's a critical factor that needs to be addressed. And I think it comes back to the consumers, the enterprises that buy these technologies to put pressure on these organizations to say, show me what you're doing to minimize surface water consumption, aquifer consumption, uh, energy consumption. There should be pressure being put back on these individuals to basically make models smaller and faster and smarter so they consume less water at the end of the day.
It also could be that you could tax the data center back, make it I hate to say it, the first way to make it impactful is to put a tax on them for water consumption
Yeah.
and make them
Well, I'm going to
increase
be,
the financial impact.
I'm going to be really controversial on that one, Ryan. I don't think it's just the data centers, right? So if you're going to lay off 30,000 people, 8,000 people, 10,000 people, and replace them with AI, then you should pay a tax on that because we know that there is going to be a massive increase on energy and water demand to replace those people.
This is true.
Period. It it's not about even fairness, it's about equity. We have to be equitable to human civilization, and that's not what we're doing right now.
Yeah, all major economists right now currently agree there is no safety net in place. And to your point, Mike, consumption of natural and water, electricity, etc. There is no safety net for the individual being let go. There is no safety net for the community and for the environment at this point in time.
In Texas, they charge you more if you have an EV for your your registration, because you're not paying into the taxes for the roads, right? Because you're not buying gas. So when I came through, Mike, they should tax the agent that replaced the human, because we're not getting the taxes that would normally be putting back into the system, if you will, if it was a human. So it'd be an interesting, what if it'd be an interesting game to tax an agent or figure out a way to do it. Now, I don't know how you would. Then you've got our great president, all sarcasm intended on my side, would like to analyze all the models apparently and decide if they're any good, which I don't think is a good role of government. But the idea that there should be some balance here, I think is true. And I think not just water and power consumption, but what's going on the other side of it is, if IBM can figure out how to make silicon that can be cooled more easily, NVIDIA should be taxed to make sure that they're the culprit in this case, right? They're the huge impact
Yeah.
here. They should be. What started me down this road of the article, I saw a video that I couldn't find again of them pouring water over all these frames and all to make sure that they were cool enough. And so the idea, they should be charged with not just improving the speed that they can do an inference or a training, but their energy consumption, like cars. Why not put um, you know, targets that they have to achieve in a period of time where they get a penalty?
Yeah.
I think that'd be a very good government action here. I'm sure this will be very popular on some of the people that read my post. But there are other options and ways to make this and improve upon it. And we've seen it over and over. It's like if you go look at pictures of New York in the 70s and look at it now, the clean air is obvious. So there's a way society can impact us.
Yeah.
Anything else, gentlemen? We got
Yeah.
1 minute, I think.
I would say, yeah, I was reading a discourse about taxation over the weekend and the comparison between some of the Nordic countries that have, full services. You can call it socialism if you want. And the comment compared to the United States in particular was you don't have a taxation problem, you have an accounting problem. And that's what this is. This is an accounting problem, and we have got to figure out how to make it work so that the people who are displaced or the people who are struggling aren't getting hit every way, from gas tax to not being able to get clean water to not having a place to live. Like it becomes a massive impact on society, and we as humans owe each other something better than that.
And we owe future generations a lot more of what we're going to do with the environment. Campbell, do you have a final comment?
Yeah, I think one thing that listeners need to take away, and I sort of did write this down. Every AI decision is also an environmental decision and an economic decision. So for business leaders, this means asking your vendors hard questions about water usage, energy sourcing, supply chain ethics, not as a compliance checkbox, but as a genuine part of the AI strategy that you're doing as an organization or as a consumer. It means understanding the free AI is subsidized by, communities, ecosystems, and your next hardware purchase. So it's just a lot of things need to be in the back of your mind constantly about the impact you're doing when you say, generate a picture of my cat that looks like a human. Bottom line.
And I like the cartoon, so now I'm going to feel guilty about that, but that's part of me. Mike, any last words?
I got nothing after that, guys. I'm not gonna, no cat cartoons.
All right. All right. Thank you, gentlemen.
Peace.